This video is directed at anyone who is using the Long Island Randall Genealogy ebook and wants to physically locate or contact anybody in the book. To do that, there are several tools that are available to you. The first one is the People Finder chart, which is generated within this ebook, and I'll go there right now so that you can take a look at a typical chart. This one in particular was created for me because I am using myself as an example in this video. Somebody has to volunteer to be a guinea pig, and I don't want to volunteer any of you out there. Now, I do want to interject here that if you're watching this video just to find out how to construct the People Finder chart, skip to the last 3 minutes of this video, where you'll find that information. The bulk of this video is concerned with understanding all of these tools that are available to you and how to use them, and to work through some examples. So at any rate, we have the People Finder chart, which is one of our tools. The other essential tool that you'll need is one of the many online people search engines. The one that I use most frequently is peoplesmart.com. It's very good, and the initial searches are free. The free part is that these search engines will narrow down your search for that person to a list of cities. And if you want to refine your search further and find the exact city and their telephone number, then you have to pay. Well, I avoid this by including a second link, which is whitepages.com, where I can get that information for nothing. So those are your three tools: People Finder, Data Search Engine, and White Pages. And they work hand in hand together to locate this person of interest. So in order to conduct an actual search, the first thing I'm going to do is set up my monitor so that I have all three of these tools available. The first thing I will do is to go to peoplesmart.com, for which I've included a link on this page, so I'll click that link now, and that places PeopleSmart in my browser. I'm going to create another tab right now in my browser, which is Firefox. If you have Internet Explorer, the procedure is just the same. You click up at the top here, as I'm doing right now, to create a new tab into which you enter whitepages.com. I now have my two external links on separate tabs, so I can switch back and forth freely between them. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this screen. Then I go back to my People Finder table just by clicking the screen, and I'll minimize it. The last step is to adjust these two screens so that they occupy about half the page each. So now on the right I have People Finder. On the left I have PeopleSmart, and if I click on the tab up here, I've got White Pages. I have an efficient setup here for doing a search. The very first thing I'm going to do here is give you an example of how powerful this search engine is. I'm going to enter my name here and do a search. Well, almost instantaneously it came up with me, but that was just a fluke of luck because I have a very unusual last name. But it lists my name, and it lists 3 possible cities that I might be living in. So to pin down our identification, I go to White Pages, where I enter my name and one of the cities. In this case, I'll enter the correct one. And it does come up with a telephone number and an address for me in Grants Pass. If it does not come up with any results, then I picked the wrong city. So I just enter another city and search again until I find the telephone number. So that's the part that White Pages plays in this. We can dispense with that now. We don't need White Pages anymore. In general, when you're doing a search for somebody, you're not going to be that lucky that you have an unusual last name like Stockhausen. And you're going to encounter something more like this. I've got my name entered here. I'm just going to put my initial in. and I'll do a search. It comes up with a very long list, which is obviously too long. I want to narrow this list down a little bit. And there are several ways that you can do that. You can screen this table by age, or you can enter a first name, a middle name, a maiden name as applicable, or you can narrow your search down to a specific state. All of these things are very effective ways of cutting your list of possibilities down to an acceptable list of possibilities. But you have to be a little bit careful in the way you do your screening, because you don't want to screen in such a way that you exclude the person you're looking for in the screening process. There are a number of precautions you have to look out for, and I'll go through these one by one, from the top of the list down to the bottom. The first is the age screening. In this particular search engine, you can screen out everybody except people within a bracket of about 16 or 17 years. Now, according to the book, I'm 71 years old. Well, the book might be wrong. I might be 68. Or the age that PeopleSmart has for me might be incorrect. So I want to keep myself in the middle of that bracket. So I'm going to choose here a lower limit of 64 and an upper limit of 80. Let's just see what we come up with. Well, it comes up with an acceptable list of possibilities, and I'm included in the list. That's the only precaution that you should take with regard to screening by age. As far as the first name is concerned, you have to use a little bit of caution. For instance, suppose I'm looking for Robert Stockhausen. Do a search for him. I get a fairly long list. If I want to narrow the list down using the first name, I might try putting in Bob Stockhausen. Well, that certainly does cut the list down. But I may have screened out the person that I'm looking for, because these four people here evidently have a Bob Stockhausen on some public document. So be careful about using shortened names. Middle name or middle initial, there really isn't much of a problem with that. The same thing for maiden name. Searching by state you have to be very careful about, because it's very easy to screen out the name you're looking for if you pick the wrong state. So I would suggest that screening by state is the last alternative. If you can't shorten down your list by any other means, then start screening by state. You can do searches for several states. It doesn't take very long to do that. I'm going to go back to my name again. This time I see that I have several possibilities. I might not be sure which of these two it might be. Ultimately, the only way that you can confirm that you have the right person is to call each of these people up or write them. But there is another way that you can make a pinpoint identification, and that's this last column over here, which is possible relations. In my case here, I have listed Florence J. Stockhausen. Well, that's my mother. That's where the People Finder chart comes in, because my mother is, in fact, Florence Stockhausen. She's listed here as Florence Randall, but that's kind of a fluke. My mother was widowed, and she remarried, and her name and my name became Stockhausen. So once I see that name in that column, I know that this is the Phil Stockhausen that I'm looking for. I'm going to give you another example, and this is a real-life example. It's something that I discovered during the course of making this video. I have an Aunt Alma. I don't have any recollection of her. There is no record of her death. If she were still alive, she would be 118 years old now. So obviously she's passed away. But at any rate, Mom was kind of fond of her. I have a picture of her, and Mom talked about her all the time. So I'm kind of curious as to what happened to her. Let's see if we can find out. According to People Finder, her married name is Balkney, but she had a second husband, and People Finder didn't pick that up. Her second husband's name was Friesendo, so I'm going to enter her and do a search. Friesendo. How do you spell that? And we come up with one result. Alma Friesendo died in 1976 at the age of 81. Now, if you do the math from the People Finder table, you'll find that my Aunt Alma was 81 years old in 1976. This is indeed the person, and I found out what happened to her. Real life stuff. Finally, I'm going to give you a last example here. Suppose you're looking for Phil Stockhausen and you go through all of this effort and you come up empty. Well, you're still not lost because the People Finder table lists all of the search information for my immediate family. My brother, my two nephews, and a great niece. And my mother, who has passed away, so she's not going to be of much use. But I can try any one of these people. So if I can't find Phil Stockhausen, I can do a search for any one of his immediate family. If I can find them, they can tell me. So I'll just take as an example my nephew. And it comes up with a list for him, which is really quite long, but again, I can identify that this is the Richard Stockhausen I'm looking for by the people who were associated with him, because they all appear in the People Finder's chart. So that essentially covers the ins and outs of using these tools to locate people. It's really quite effective, and I've had a tremendous amount of success with this method, especially searching for Randalls. The last topic that I would like to address is how did we create this chart in the first place? The People Finder chart depends on direct input from the relations table, and I'll go there to explain to you what that is. This is a table that was created for me that lists how I am related to all of the other living Randalls or Randalls who have recently passed, and that includes Randalls in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th generation. The list starts out with my immediate family: brothers, sisters, parents, children, nephews, nieces, aunts, and uncles. Then come the first cousins. After that comes the second cousins, going all the way to fifth or sixth cousins. It's quite a long list. But at any rate, the People Finder chart extracts information from this table for my immediate family. It cuts off at first cousins. And it takes that data, I'll jump back to People Finder table, it takes that data for my immediate family and constructs a quasi-family tree type of relationship. Here I am, here is my brother and his children, his grandchildren, and then these people up here are all aunts and uncles. There's a two-step process. First, you have to create the relations table. I'll show you how to do that. You click Create New Relations Table. You'll get a dialog box into which you enter the name of the person and then click the Go button. In general, when you enter the name of a person, you have to know their middle name, because the name that you enter has to exactly match one of the names in this drop-down box. Now, if you don't know the person's middle name, or you can't locate that person in this drop-down list, click the Help button, and it will give you some guidance as to how to find that person in the drop-down list. At any rate, I already have this relations table created for myself, so I don't have to create it again. Once this list is created, then I can go back to People Finder and create the table just by clicking that appropriate link. I get a dialog box that I don't really have to read. All I have to do is click the button that says Construct Table. So that's about all we have to cover. We've taken a look at the tools that you need to do a people search. We've discussed some of the pitfalls of using the search engines. We've also discussed how the search engines and the People Finder chart work hand in hand together to narrow down your search and come up with a solution. Finally, we've discussed how to create the People Finder chart. So I think we're done for the day, and thank you very much.